All right, guys, we are live. UFC Vegas 60, UFC Sanhagen versus Yadong recap show on the Sherdog YouTube page. My name is Keith Shillan. I'm your host. Joining me as always is the CEO of Sherdog, the president, whatever he is. The
I
top.
don't even I don't
He is
even
the
want that.
top guy as as
I am not.
as as the editor in chief Mike Fridley is on vacation, which means this is Ben's chance to move up. He went from hand of the king to the king himself. He's ruling. Ben, how you doing, man?
I am not bleeding profusely from a giant hole in my head. So I am ahead of the game compared to what feels like a third of the people that just fought tonight at the Apex.
Yeah, I absolutely love when we have a fight card where we said that, especially after a UFC pay-per-view, that there's going to be a little of a hangover. We said this is a card just for the hardcores. We really stressed how good the matchmaking was. It was one of the hardest cards to pick fights down the card, and there was so many fights that just absolutely delivered. The main event, the co-main, I mean, the top three fights were all bangers. Just a fantastic card. There was a lot. I'm taking a win for picking Sarah McMahon over Aspen Ladd. I don't care anymore. That's a win for Sarah McMahon. And let's get right into it. Main event. One of the best divisions in MMA, the bantamweight division. I've been saying this for a long time, and it came through again. Is there any debate right now, Ben, that there's a better division than bantamweight?
I actually tweeted this tonight. I said that I always find myself arguing against my friends and colleagues, and you are both, who claim that men's bantamweight is the best division in MMA, and I'm not sure why I keep making that argument, and I'm probably wrong.
You're just dying on that hill, huh?
I'm done dying on that hill. It's the best division in the sport right now.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. We had two of the guys in the division. Song Yadong making his main event debut, taking on Cory Sandhagen, who been out for a little bit, but he looks good. It was one of these fights where we said ahead of time that I thought that neither guy's stock would fall, whoever lost. And
Sure.
I don't feel less about Song Yadong. In fact, I might even feel even better about him, even though I had him losing before the fight was stopped. Cory Sandhagen winning by fourth round TKO as the fight was stopped between the fourth and the fifth round due to one of the nastiest cuts I've ever seen. It reminded me of the Marvin Eastman Vitor Belfort cut from was that UFC 45, 44?
Yeah.
I think.
Well, one of the nastiest cuts you've ever seen, yet arguably not even the nastiest cut of the night. I mean, we're going to talk about the co-main event next. And, I mean, you could see Gregory Rodriguez's brain.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I think you could see through Yadong. I think like you were seeing people in the you could see like Uriah Faber behind him through the hole. Like I don't know. That was like if the UFC was like owned by Disney, that would have been like the new entrance to Narnia. Like you go through the cut in Song Yadong's head. I thought it was extremely nasty. Let's get into the action. Heading into the fifth round. So, we completed 4 rounds. How did you have it scored?
I had it 3-1 for Sandhagen. I gave Song the first round. I gave Sandhagen 2 through 4.
Yeah, that's how I had it too. I thought the second and the fourth were both really close rounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I would actually had no issue if someone had Yadong winning. I just put on my AC up. I'm like sweating. If it's really loud, guys, I'll turn it off. I know most people say they can't hear it, but it's like right here next to me, so that's why I always say it. I had it 3-1. Do we know what this like? Do we have the scorecards from the judges yet, by any chance, or if anybody on the chat knows?
I'll keep a lookout for it.
Okay. Yadong is a really nasty boxer. I mean, his hand speed, his accuracy, his power. He really is one of the best pure boxers in the bantamweight division, if not the entire UFC. Agree or disagree?
I agree, and I think the same of Sandhagen. So it was interesting to see how they matched up. Just two very different boxers, two very different body types, opposite stances. It was a really interesting clash.
Yeah, so I'm gonna mention a lot of guys had it 2-2 between the two of them. What I liked and the thing that I really liked for Sanhagen kind of going into this fight and really showed is just his variety. And that's what stood out to me. He was the complete martial artist. the mixed martial arts where he was mixing everything. He was switching stances, jab, switching stance, kick, flying knee, switch kick, spinning back fist, right cross, inside kick, take a shot, step in knee, flying elbow. He had so much variety. And while I think Yadong has all the tools to be a champion, I really do. Like, his boxing is that good. When I think about pure boxers in the division, I mean, it's probably Jan and then him.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other guys in the conversation. Adrian Yanez is a fantastic boxer.
Okay. Yep.
But they're definitely in the team photo. Like, it's a pretty clear top 4 or 5 guys.
What I loved, and they talked about this in his post-fight interview, was the wrestling shots from Sanhagen. And what there was so many things he was doing with it that it looks like it was a failure, because I think he was stopped all but one time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so many things he was doing. One, he had obviously the chance of getting a takedown. Like, if he hits the perfect thing, he get a takedown. But also, every single time Yadong was starting to move forward, get a little pressure, where he starts getting into his rhythm, he'd have to stop a takedown. Anytime he wanted to throw combinations, he really couldn't, because he'd have to stop a takedown. The building up of lactic acid in his arms that would slowly, over time, I always go thinking back to the GSP versus BJ Penn 2 fight, where GSP wanted to turn into a wrestling match to slow down the punching power and the hand speed. But ultimately, how many kicks did Song Yadong throw tonight?
Very few.
Exactly. That's such a big part of his game that went out the door because he was afraid to kick because Sanhagen wanted to wrestle.
I agree, and it didn't come up, but I also thought Sanhagen might have been setting himself up for, okay, I'm going to wrestle a lot the first round, so when I feint a level change later, he has to react, and I give him the knee of death.
That's a really good point. And he tried it a couple of times, so that's probably why they mentioned on the broadcast that he was throwing it like even more than usual. That could be it.
Because, I mean, the thing about Sanhagen's knees is he's so tall, and he disguises it so well that he crosses ground almost like a fencer doing a lunge, and he closes that distance with his knee up so fast, which is how he catches these guys off guard. And I thought maybe he was working towards that by investing in wrestling early, because it cost him the round. He fought very differently from how he usually does that first round, and that's the only round I thought was definitely a Song round. But it worked out for him.
Yeah, shout out to Zach Z. He said that 2 of the judges had it even. Chris Lee had a 3-1. I'm assuming he's saying 3-1 Sanhagen. So, yeah, if that fight wasn't stopped, there was a chance for Song Yadong to win. I scrolled through Twitter, and we are as bloodthirsty as it comes. We watch the most violent sport in the world. I didn't see anybody complaining about the stoppage. Like, the only person who complained about it was Sanhagen, the guy who won.
And I mean, if there were any complaints on Twitter, it was that it hadn't been stopped the whole round before.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There were plenty of people saying stop this thing after the third.
Yeah.
But no, we had Just Bleed Bro on cage side doctor duty. Like, James Laudner, the guy from UFC 15 that was all painted up, apparently got his medical degree. But even he, after round 4, you could hear him say to Herb, like, I don't like this at all.
No, I was.
Yeah.
It's such a tough situation because the doctor doesn't want to stop it, but obviously has to. The referee never wants to overrule a doctor.
No.
Herb Dean was like, there was a moment where he said something like, oh, give it another look in a minute, and you can see Herb Dean was like, yeah, okay. Like, no, dude, do you want to stop it? Put it on you. Like, don't put me in that situation.
No. And once the doctor said that, Herb was stopping this regardless. I mean, like, I've said this a few times, but I went to the, Association of Boxing Commission's ref training courses just last month. And one thing that they hammered into everybody was, if something is a doctor decision, pass it up to the doctor immediately and then do what they say. Like, what kind of liability would a ref be would be exposing himself to if he defied the doctor's advice and kept an injured fighter going? Yeah. Like, I knew that was over as soon as the doc said, I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's why they're there for. That's, I don't think, like, I thought Sandhagen, I picked him to win, but I actually thought he looked even better than I thought. I mean, his movement, his wrestling, everything. The fact that he talked about changing to go from an action fighter to learning to win rounds and learn, he said, to play the sport, which he was already an extremely intelligent in what he was doing, not in the sense of game planning to win the match, more just I'm just so technically skilled and I understand distance, everything. If he turns into a guy who really understands what judges, like you said, look for, he can be world champion.
Yes.
And he's
yeah, no, like you go ahead. You're in the middle of a thought.
No, I mean, I was just saying, like, this is a guy. He's still young in the UFC. Like, his time in the UFC is like he was rushed right up there, and he's taken on everybody. And you think about,
I think Sanhagen's been in the UFC for less time than Song has.
Well, there you go.
And Song's 24 years old. Yeah,
I know that is insane to see a guy that good.
I do want to mention something because Dev's mentioned it a couple times here, and he actually mentioned it to me offline, kind of during the fights. He says, I really do wish Sandhagen could add some venom to his boxing. It's interesting because his boxing is his best single skill. You know, it is his bread and butter, but it's not his finishing skill. You know, he finishes people with a surprisingly opportunistic ground game. He finishes people, obviously, with spectacular flying knees and kicks. But the boxing is the glue that kind of holds it all together. And I don't know what he could do to really add more venom to it. To me, it reminds me of kind of Max Holloway boxing. And I think I said that on the preview, where it is the accuracy and the pace and the number of strikes that he will lay on you that really makes it go. It's not any individual, power of any individual strike. And he kind of uses that to steer people into the things that he does finish fights with. Like he uses it to steer them into shooting bad takedowns on them, to overcompensating for it or trying to shoot for a takedown, and they run into his knee. But yeah, boxing is just kind of the glue that holds the house together.
Yeah, some guys don't have a natural crushing power. Some guys, you don't sit on your punches. The way he flows is fairly Dominic Cruz. Like Dominic Cruz never really starts guys. He also holds back his shots. Is why he can continue to do all the stuff he does. I mean, think about all the variety he was doing in movement and just staying so much busier than Yadong, and he didn't slow down a second. And that's because he holds back some of his power. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, I mean, with Cruz, it's more of a case of he's throwing these punches while hopping on one foot and with his center of gravity not over that foot. Whereas with Sanhagen, it's more of I'm throwing these at 70 or 80% because it is an investment in volume. I can't just swing 110% on everything for 5 rounds. It just doesn't work.
Just like there was times where he was in on the hips of Yadong, that Yadong stuffed the takedown. That there was times that he could have drove a little bit, turned a corner, and had a battle to win that position, and he didn't.
No, he was fighting a 5-round fight.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it. I mean, you think about John Jones doesn't really have a punch of power. You don't think of John Jones as this big knockout artist. You don't think of George St. Pierre as one of these big knockout artists.
No.
A lot of the all-time greats, Daniel Cormier and Demetrius Johnson, like none of these guys, other than, we rank in the top 10 guys all time. I mean, how many guys had crushing knockout power? Anderson Silva.
Penn had surprising amounts of power for a lightweight.
I said top 10 though, but okay.
Yeah. Oh, you mean top 10 all time?
Yeah, no, I was just busting your balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that I have a personality that would debate with people over their top 10 rankings. It's crazy.
There is a chummy, ball busting buddy vibe that you have that comes across face to face conversation that doesn't always translate via text. Is all I'll say.
I've been known to be a little bit of a dickhead.
Yeah. Fedor. Yeah, Fedor had crushing power in his hands. Aldo had crushing power in his hands, though that wasn't usually what.
No.
That wasn't usually what finished his fights for him.
No, crushing, taking out the legs and everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far down this road because we're talking about Cory Sandhagen, and he's obviously not in that realm, but or just a really, really good performance. I really think he made the matchmaking very easy for us.
if you think it's easy, then I'm definitely letting you go first. But I want to ask one more question about the fight before we get there. How much do you think the cut affected those next 3 rounds?
Absolutely, a lot.
Because as long as we agree on that, and I'm not saying Song would have won otherwise, but I wish I'd seen it. Like, I almost wish the fight had been stopped early enough on that cut that a rematch was the obvious choice.
Yeah,
as weird as that sounds.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's one of those ones that's tough because, like, if this blood wasn't covering his face, would he have done better seeing that side? Especially a guy who like Sanhagen, who's darting it out, moving, lateral movement, switching stances. Like, he's one of those guys. He makes it difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, it's already difficult. Blood's coming to your face. You're drinking it. You're blurring your vision, and then he's a guy who's moving around. He's hard to see, regardless with 2 eyes.
And Song landed a takedown. And immediately, Sanhagen is just starting to get ready to grind his gloves and his elbow into that cut. And you can see Song almost retreat, lets him back up in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and it was worse when he was taken down and the blood was just pooling. And you see him get up. When I knew it was over between the 4th and 5th round. He got up, and you see him like having a hard time. And besides the doctor stopping the fight, they were saying that Song Yadong did mention that he couldn't say, which.
Well, that's an instant.
Yeah, I didn't hear that again. I don't know.
If you don't say that, then you can get 6 more whole fights like Michael Bisping did. But if you say that, it's over.
Yeah. So the other thing, I don't want people to take it away from this because Cory Sandhagen cut him. It was a technique that he throws that is known to cutting. It wasn't a lucky shot. It wasn't. It was what he does.
And he does that to a lot of people. I saw that I heard that the booth, because I turned the sound on like right after the cut because I wanted to hear what the booth was saying about it. And they compared him to Tony Ferguson. And maybe Sanhagen is entering that phase where you can put up a picture. Here, Cory Sandhagen's last 6 opponents, win or lose, and they all look like they've been in a fight with a lawnmower. And I think there's something to that. Hopefully he doesn't become the next Ferguson in that he hits his ceiling and never quite wears an undisputed title. But as someone that just punishes and slices and dices everyone he fights, both of them just make me think of Kenny Florian with elite athleticism. Where everything on me is sharp. Like, I'm made of razor blades. But where Florian was a hard worker who kind of made up for a lack of natural athleticism, both Sanhagen and Ferguson are athletes.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about the best division, and I've seen people throw it out there who he should fight next. I've seen Dev Goes Fishing mentions. I'm talking about Sanhagen. He mentions Chito Vera, which is obviously going to be a really popular guy based on him recently winning. Bass is saying Sean O'Malley if he wins. I think if O'Malley wins, he's getting a title shot. I'll say this: there's not many people who call out Merab Dvalishvili.
Nope.
Cory Sandhagen did that,
which I think that's smart because, one, you make the point. It instantly makes him the good guy. Like, there's almost nothing that MMA fans hate more than thinking a fighter is ducking another, and I think it's generally greatly overstated. I don't think most fighters duck anybody.
No, I totally agree.
But the opposite side of that is that fans love the fighters who call for the impossible fights. Like, everyone loved that in the middle of 2020. Like, Holland was calling for fights with Chimaev. Like, he ended up getting what he wanted, and it wasn't good. But, it helped kind of make his legend that he was the only guy saying, I'll fight him, 170 or 185. I like that, and it also helps smooth over the problem that Sandhagen's lost to the top 3 guys in the division. He's lost to Dillashaw, even though it was closed. He's lost to Jan uncontroversially, and he got run over by Sterling. So he needs to do something to get a title shot. Either those guys need to be out of the picture, or he needs to just start hunting down the people that nobody wants.
It's such a logjam right now because of how loaded it is. I mean, you have Dillashaw fighting for the title against Aljamain Sterling. You have Chito Vera, who's right there in line. You have Sanhagen's not too far off. You have Merab right there. Henry Cejudo is supposed to be coming back and likely fighting in that division, even though he keeps talking about Alex Volkanovski. After Dillashaw, it's a real crapshoot who gets the next call. I mean, I'm assuming it'd be Cejudo. Yeah, that's the most marketable fight. But if it's not,
and Cejudo has He has the Conor McGregor instant pass, only his is actually kind of deserved.
Yeah, he left as a champion. He did
Yeah.
defend the title.
Yeah.
So yeah, not many guys call for Merab Dvalishvili. I actually think it's a tough stylistic matchup for Sandhagen. I mean, he's so big and he's so fun and he's competitive, but Merab's just a tough matchup for anybody.
Yep.
To call for that. That's the fight I would do. Now I call over to the editor-in-chief and I say, Ben, what are you doing?
If I'm really the editor-in-chief, I'm just going to fire myself. But what am I doing? Honestly, for Sandhagen, I was thinking kind of more of a holding pattern fight. I mean, if they want to do the Merab fight, great. Otherwise, I was thinking someone like Ricky Simon or Said Nurmagomedov, someone that's on a winning streak, not in the immediate picture, so Sandhagen can either like build his own case by beating them, or they can, build their case on him and kind of provide a new face in that picture in the top 5. But I mean, Merab would be the ideal fight. That would be fantastic.
If you did match up Sanhagen with someone else, lower down in the division, like, what would you do with Merab? What would you do with Cheeto? Who would they fight each other and then one contender matchup? Like, what would you do?
I wouldn't burn Cheeto that way. I think I'd give Merab the next shot and give Cheeto either a rematch with O'Malley if O'Malley wins, or with the loser of one of the title fights coming up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So put you on the spot. Who wins the title? No, I'm just kidding. Sung Yadong, I agree. His stock hasn't fallen down, but because of that entire logjam you just mentioned, I kind of went the same route with you did with Sanhagen. I'm putting him in that hold and kind of put him down, let him be a test for somebody else. I thought about doing the Magomedov. I just said, they're both young and exciting. I don't want to have them face each other. Ricky Simon is on this winning streak. Like, you can't ignore it forever. He deserves a really big shot. I like Ricky Simon versus Sung Yadong in like a co-main event of a fight night, or even like a pay-per-view opener.
And the funny thing about Simon is, like, obviously his path and Merab's have crossed, and he won that weird technical submission in a fight where Merab was seconds away from, he was 0 seconds away from winning it. I mean, it happened at the closing horn, and that kind of delayed Merab's rise up the ranks. But for Simon, he's actually improved over the course of the rest of that streak.
Absolutely.
Like, he is not the same guy that got starched by Faber like 4 years ago or whenever it was. Like, he is such a better fighter now. So it kind of ended up being a good thing for both of them, I think.
Yeah. They definitely got to become better fighters in this long run instead of getting rushed quicker. So we have a lot of fights to go, so let's move on. Absolute bonkers fight between Chidi and Jokouani and Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez. So before we talk about the nonsense and just craziness of RoboCop, who's really, that nickname is starting to become synonymous with him, where it's almost more popular than his actual name. Like, you say Shogun Hua, you say Mirko Krokop. Yeah. It's starting to turn into just RoboCop. Chidi and Jokouani has really turned into a sniper. I mean, he was landing little short shots, rocking Rodriguez, hurting him. But Gregory Rodriguez, dude, like, he is as durable as comes. I think you mentioned, like, he's going to get hurt every fight.
Mm-hmm.
He just doesn't get stopped. It's insane.
Yeah, because Jokouani had him in trouble twice, really bad in that first round. He lasted through it, and at the end of the round, he's the one that had Jokouani in trouble, and honestly had him in more trouble than he had been earlier in the round. Like, I gave that round to Jokouani, but you can make a good argument that Rodriguez came back and stole that round at the end just by nearly finishing the fight.
I actually did give it to Rodriguez because while Jokouani buckled Rodriguez twice, Rodriguez had Jokouani really hurt. Barely surviving the round hurt.
I mean, I've got some technical observations about Chidi and Jokouani. And I'm not normally the X's and O's guys, but I've been watching them for long enough, and I've seen them develop for long enough that there are certain things that really impress me with him and some things that still frustrate me. One, he is absolutely a walking testament to the power of a fighter moving up to their natural weight class. because he went from a talented but extremely frustrating 170 pounder to all of a sudden he's like, he took a loss here, but a guy that seems to have fringe contender upside at 185. But
yeah, I agree. I don't feel his stock really went down. There's one thing I want to talk about him, but yeah, I don't feel that bad, even though he got stopped.
And I mean, Dev said it. I think we're going to get to it. But in the first round, I was reminded how good he is at rechambering his kicks. I mean, he throws his kicks out extremely fast. He's a Muay Thai type striker, so it's a lot of quick, snappy kicks. But a lot of fighters will kick out fast, but he rechambers that kick just as fast. He doesn't leave it out there to be grabbed, and that lets him kick with impunity, even against the guy in Rodriguez that he knew probably wanted to take him down at some point. I like that. I don't like that somebody with as many Muay Thai fights as in Jokouani couldn't get out of a single collar tie, as Rodriguez towards the end of the round was just marching around and just basically hockey uppercutting him. I was like, dude, he's just holding your neck with a single hand, like at full arm's length. Like, get out of there. You're an experienced Muay Thai fighter. You have like twice as many Muay Thai fights as MMA fights. Like, get out of there. Maybe he was just 2 days. Maybe he wasn't aware how tenuous a hold Rodriguez had on him, but I think that eventually cost him the fight because he took a ton of damage there. And from there, it's on to the second round where I think we're probably going to talk about the other thing.
Yeah, so he was hurt bad, but we'll talk about the cut real quick. There was a ridiculously bad gash, saying that you could see inside see his brain. I didn't see that much. We didn't get as good of a directly on with all the cornermen in front. You didn't get as good of an angle as we did with Song Yadong, but it did look really, really bad. The same doctor allowed Gregor Rodriguez, and I just think about the mental fortitude that came in this round between the two fighters. Rodriguez has this terrible cut. It's bleeding. It's terrible. He got hurt multiple times. He didn't see face one bit.
Nope.
He just comes out marching, gets right in Jokouani's face, throwing bombs right away. And yeah, I do think Chidi was really hurt in the first round. He was little dazed. But as Bass mentioned, as Dev mentioned, they both kind of did. I think he mentally broke him. When he didn't go away, stayed in his face, even though he looks tired, he's still throwing absolute heat. And when he got that takedown, he was shooting better takedowns against Chidi early, and Chidi was, whizzer kicking out of it, scrambling out of it. The takedown in the very beginning of the second seemed really easy. And as soon as he hit the ground, he seemed like he gave up a little.
He literally curled up on his side and died. Yeah, he shelled up as soon as they were down. I was like, oh man, I remember this guy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So like, he has the skills there. That's the thing I'm worried about. As it seems like Alan McDonald mentioned it, Bass mentioned it, Dev mentioned it, you mentioned it, I mentioned it. I respect all these three guys I just mentioned in the chat. I really respect these guys' opinions. And we're all seeing the same thing with him. That's concerning.
And moving up in weight fixed most of his problems. It cannot fix that, but it is a fixable problem because that used to be the scouting report on Charles Oliveira, and all of a sudden he's a guy that's not only on a huge winning streak, he's been hurt bad by elite fighters in several of those. Gaethje had him in some trouble. Poirier had him in some trouble. Chandler had him in some trouble. Like Chandler almost finished the fight in the first round. So it is fixable. He's got plenty. I mean, I'm not going to say he's got plenty of time. I think he's like 34 or 35, but it's fixable. And at the very least, we're not going to get any boring Chidi and Jokouani fights for as long as he's around the UFC. And he used to be boring at 170. He'd throw out like 6 strikes around and like flinch every time somebody like changed levels for a takedown. He's not that dude anymore.
Yeah. And speaking of not getting any boring, we will never get a boring Gregor Rodriguez fight.
Nope.
What do you think? He's 4-1 in the UFC now. This is a really good win. Like, what do you think? I mean, he's got to be, he's not in our top 15 rankings for Sherdog, and our rankings are different than UFC's as we rank the entire world, Bellator, One Championship, all kinds of guys. He's got to be on that cusp right outside.
He is. And that's kind of where I was looking at in terms of next matchups. Having the one loss actually kind of helps him a little bit because it stops the UFC from having to stick him right into actual contender matchups, which anyone who's 5-0 at middleweight in the UFC, even if they're not Alex Pereira, they're I mean, they're talking about top 5 opponents for him. That's just how depleted the division is. So losing a fight, even if it was a little iffy, bought him a little bit of a reprieve from getting pushed up the ladder too fast.
Yeah, I got a name for him. I think because of how exciting he is, co-main event, just he's so marketable with the nickname, his fighting style. He's great on the ground. He throws absolute heat. He gets rocked. It's going to be. It seems like every one of his fights looks like what we saw tonight. I was thinking that escalator, so I'm going to give him a top 15 guy who's kind of losing a lot. I'm going pretty high with him, man. I'm giving Marvin Vettori.
I would love to see it, and I give him a sneaky high chance against him.
I do too. Like I would pick Vettori right now.
Yeah, and Vettori would come out as probably not quite a minus 200, or maybe right around a minus 200 favorite. And I think there'd be some value there.
Yeah, some of the guys that people throw out, like Chris Curtis was the guy I was thinking of that Bass mentioned. Dev goes with Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who's had a really good showing tonight. I just think I want Violent, and how easy and marketable is it? Marvin Vettori and Gregory Rodriguez, two absolutely chiseled to the max, throwing bombs. Vettori's on a little bit of a losing streak, so
that's higher than I went. But if they make that, I'm happy with it. I mean, I was being realistic. Just with that cut, he's going to be on the shelf for a while, because otherwise, I was looking, in a couple of weeks. Brendan Allen, Christoph Yatko fight. I was like the winner of that. But realistically, we go to the end of October. Phil Hawes and Roman DeLeeds are fighting. I was thinking the winner of that.
That actually is a pretty good pick, too.
Two very different fighters. Yeah. Like we're either going to get him, against a wrestler with crushing power in Hawes, or DeLeeds, kind of a brawler who can grapple. Both are yoked dudes as well.
Phil Hawes would be interesting because he's got a lot of chitty in him. Different style, but he's a big power puncher who's so explosive. But he's a little bit of a front runner too. Like what happens? He unloads those shots. He has Rodriguez really hurt.
Yeah,
and then Rodriguez still in there coming at him. Like he's a guy that I could think. Alan McDonald mentioned another one I liked, Kelvin Gastelum. So kind of not going like where I went with like a really tough, hard matchup, a little easier, but still a good name value, which would be kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, he's like our own, bantamweight, lightweight division where you can't make a bad matchup. Like he's that exciting.
Punches and Bunches says he thinks he starts as Phil. I think that's a 2 true outcome fight. Either Phil knocks him out in the first 3 minutes, or he knocks Phil out like late in the second round or sometime in the third.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how I view it. Let's move on. That was a banger fight. So was this last fight. We had Andre Fili taking on Bill Algio, winning a split decision. Really incredible fight. The first 2 rounds were toss-ups. I had it 1-1 heading into the last round. Just such fun exchanges. The how Fili came out with high kicks in the first round, then the adjustment that Algio came out in the second round, just kind of crowding the kicks a little bit, standing more in his face, moving, getting him to swing a little bit. Really good. I was on the third round, and you went to the scoring school, so I got to ask you, what do you think?
I don't know if Algio had a chance to win this fight, but I know whatever chance he had, he reduced it to 0 by spending 3 minutes of the third round punching over his shoulder. I mean, apparently it was enough to sway Chris Lee, one of the 3 judges, but ultimately he punched him over his shoulder probably 40 times, and the best you can say for it is that after about 15 of them, he annoyed Fili enough that Fili stopped trying to choke him for a minute. Like that. Yeah. That's like, it was at best a defensive survival maneuver. It never damaged Fili. Apparently he bled on both of them enough to convince one judge that like they were both getting hurt.
I think they were a little better shots than you're saying. They were pretty good shots. Like they weren't going to stop the fight, but so I scored the fight for Andre Fili. I gave the third round to Fili, but that little like what everyone always talks, the back of my head was popping up about hey, it's supposed to be damage first, effective striking versus it's like effective striking, grappling together, and then octagon and control. Is Feely's grappling effective if he's getting punched in the face 50 times? Like, I did score it for him, and I think a lot of that is just my old school mentality. You have your back for a long time, and not having the balls to go give the round to Algio. But I was wondering a little bit.
If they had been enough to make Feely like give up the position and abandon trying to choke him, I could have seen giving the round to Algio. But basically, I saw him as being in survival mode for most of the round, and that was an interesting way to survive. But yeah. I mean, to me, you and I both picked Algio in this one, and we both said Feely is he's definitely the more physically talented fighter. He may be the more skilled fighter, but the most important thing is he's the better wrestler, and neither of us trusted him to fight to his best advantage and actually wrestle. And he proved us wrong. I thought he blended the perfect amount of wrestling.
I didn't know if he could wrestle anymore. I don't know if he had the skill set. He showed he still had. Feely, I was a little worried that Feely might be shot. He showed he is not shot. He'll never be a true contender or anything like that. But he showed that he still has a lot of good skills, and another one of the best divisions in MMA. The reason why I scored the last round to Feely is more of, I agree with what you're saying. Like they were good shots. I think they were better shots than you're saying. But ultimately, the person who was closest to winning and finishing the fight to me was Feely.
I agree. And I would say they're probably the best strikes I've ever seen from that position in like a high level fight, like say, like a top level promotion fight ever. Like, because we see it from time to time.
I'm glad you said that. Okay, continue your point.
I mean, we see that. I'm not every card, but almost every card, somebody will be, in back control and just kind of reaching back and sometimes even looking at the monitors and going like this. And usually it's just kind of hard, like quit dinking around and get out of there. But here, I mean, it was actually enough to make Algio react.
It was probably the best one since, remember when Roger Huerta was looking at the screen and I forgot who he was going against. He was throwing the elbows against.
Huerta, was that the Huerta versus Leonard Garcia fight?
Was it
the one that got them on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I think it might have been. Anyway,
I don't know if it was Leonard. It might have been, but I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna piss off the really old school people. Like I was like, you got to be like our age.
Bring it.
And I don't know if anybody in this chat, but this is basically just for me and you. A guy has the dominant position like Feely, and we never see the guy who is landing the shots win. It's always the guy with the dominant position. But there is one fight way back in the day that is, in my opinion, probably to this day, still the most debated fight in the history of Sherdog forums. Not so much anymore, but back in the day, it was. I mean, people were debating it 10 years. You know exactly which fight I'm talking about. I'll say this. And it's going to piss off a lot of people. Bill Algio's strikes against Andre Feely were a lot more effective than Bas Rutten strikes from on the bottom on Kevin Randleman. I said it. Deal with it. Kevin Randleman got screwed. Oh, there you go. Alan McDonald. There you go. Alan McDonald. Nice job, Alan. Anything else you want to talk about? Oh, one thing I do want to mention after the fight, Andre Feely was very emotional. Mentioned, I don't know if he's wife or girlfriend, I don't know.
Had lost what would have been their first baby.
Yeah, had a miscarriage. That's terrible. I know I speak for me, Ben, everybody. Sherdog condolences to those guys.
Yeah, good.
Anything else you want to say?
No, I mean, just that he would have brought, and hopefully we'll continue to try and we'll succeed at bringing some cute-ass kids into the world. Because for a guy in Andre Feely who just literally looks like a cross between every fighter who ever had more than 5 fights in Tachi Palace fights, like he's a, devilishly handsome man. Here's hoping that he and his lady, he
is a Hollywood actor. He is a very, up there for Hollywood acting. Like, I don't know, the next Avengers movie they make or something, maybe Andre Feely will make an appearance. Joe Pfeifer beat Joe Pfeifer. That thing alrea's gotten old on me. But,
It's gotten old, but I hope wouldn't it be great if his middle initial was B and they could just start calling him Joe B. Pfeifer?
Yeah. Take on our friend Alan Amadovski. Ended exactly how we expected it to be, with Joe Pfeifer winning by knockout. I like Piper's style. I really like his style. He's got accuracy. I love that he rips the body. I love that he attacks with combinations. He's got good power. I think he's a good addition to the UFC.
I agree, and he looks like a cross between every fighter that has ever had more than 5 fights in LFA. He just looks like like he's like a pure, like he's the LFA poster. You remember that movie Big, the one with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Alan Amadovski looks like Artem Lobov went to that Zoltar machine and wished he was big.
Oh, I seen it, but like I was maybe 6 years old or something.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Well, he just looks like an upsized
I remember that
Artem Lobov.
It was like a kid who became an adult, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Alan Amadowski, he's not good. Like, I'm pulling Alan Amadowski into my office if I'm UFC president, and I'm saying, hey, you got one option. You can you have 2 options. Option 1 is leave the UFC. Option 2 is be Chris Barnett's next opponent.
There you go.
Like,
Look, the literal gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what weight you are, male or female. So get ready, Maria Agapova.
And for you guys who watch it for the first time, or specifically did not watch last week's recap, that's an inside joke. Inside to whoever watched last week. What do you think of Pfeifer? Like, he's got some buzz. I think this guy could be a top 15 guy one day.
I agree, but my little crack about LFA kind of holds true because he's got that feel of all the 185ers that kind of came over from there. Like, he's got impressive physical tools. He seems advanced for how old he is. Just I have questions about him. How's he gonna look in the third round of a fight against someone who actually is a physical match for him? Because I mean, not only is he's already like a pretty big and muscular 185er, he says he wants to gain weight. Like, he says he wants to get bigger and put muscle on. I don't like hearing that. I've got questions about him, but the top end upside is definitely top 10. Like, he's got uncoachable fast twitch athleticism. He's got uncoachable power. Just too many question marks to say right now. All I can talk about is general upside.
Yeah. The heavyweight, the plug-in heavyweight main card fight that we always get. This time it was the long-awaited battle between Buckethead Tanner Boza and Rodrigo Nasimetto. This was the ultimate striker versus grappler matchup, and I feel like Boza really gave Rodrigo Nasimetto the fight he wanted because he made the grappling easier. Because he just circled the perimeter. Like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I actually tweeted out during the fight that what made Boza interesting during his first kind of like 4 or 5 fights in the UFC as he dropped from like 260 to 240 to 235 and was winning some fights was his movement. He was one of the few heavyweights that actually had good lateral movement, but he went from having good lateral movement that made it hard for opponents to cut him off to just kind of going in a circle. And Nasimetto had an easy time cutting him off and an easy time finding his hips. Like, Nasimetto is big and fat and slow and shot clean double legs through him at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, dude, if you're fighting a guy that outweighs you by over 30 pounds, he has to not be able to find your hips.
No, and you should be moving around. He had to be darting back and forth, faking which way he's going to go. Anytime Nasimetto pressured, Boza was moving straight back, like right to the cage. I thought it was a terrible performance, even though it was a close fight. And he made it a split decision at the end of the 3rd round, like kind of going berserk in the last 15 seconds, got up to the feet or something.
It's close because Nasimetto isn't good either.
Yeah, I'll say this about Nasimetto. He's got better cardio than I thought. He's very lumbering and he's kind of chunky and he's like,
Yeah.
he went hard. He was still going hard in a wrestle heavy fight. I mean, yeah, he was resting on top. He wasn't doing much on top, but I hope. I know they're in the same town as it was. I'm assuming Triple G and Canelo's going on in Vegas. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
because he was asking for tickets, so I'm assuming it was like a different casino or something. Yeah. I don't follow boxing that well. Like I hope someone I hope he gets. I hope he got him some tickets. The guy asked for tickets. Like if I don't know who's putting on HBO, Showtime, something like that. Just like call up the UFC and cop him some 2 tickets. I want to put on the fight, and I'm assuming it's going to happen any minute now, and see Nasimetto like the front row with like a giant pretzel and a cotton candy with a little black guy. What do you think? What do you think he's more of a cotton candy guy, the giant pretzel? What is he, like a corn dog? Like what is he eating at the?
I mean, he is Brazilian. Maybe he's just confused. There's not a dude bringing him like a roast on a sword, like at a Brazilian steakhouse and just slicing it off like, right at his seat.
He'd have at least one of those like rotisserie chickens or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at least have like a big giant gulp soda or something. Like,
yeah. Like one of those like yard of beer things or like yard of margarita. Just get hammered, man. Celebrate.
Imagine we put it on. He's drinking like a Cosmopolitan instead or something.
Just getting girl drink drunk in the front row. I like that.
Yeah,
like how many White Claws would it take to get Rodrigo Nasimetto drunk?
Before that, a fight that we were really exciting on paper, Anthony Hernandez versus Marc-Andre Barrio. It was exciting, but it was not competitive. It was a pillar to post, eye-opening, really great performance by Anthony Hernandez. I mean, he looked tremendous. I mean, he marched down Barrio, forced Barrio. We talked about like this on the preview that I said, whoever's going to fight off their back foot is probably going to lose. And Barrio was fighting off his back foot the entire fight. The volume, the accuracy. I love that he was digging the body. I love that he was, hurting him with shots, hurt him to the ribs. Like it looks like he broke a rib or cartilage damage, something in there. Then he's, getting takedowns. He's putting in submission. Like he eventually got him in the submission in the third round sub. But just a really good performance.
Anthony Hernandez, he's well on his way. I mean, if he's not already officially one of our guys, he's on his way there. I mean, if we had such a thing back when he beat Rodolfo Vieira, he absolutely would have been Anthony fucking Hernandez that night. And even up as recently as the preview last week, I was saying that's probably going to go down as like the greatest performance of his career. But this was a better performance, even in light of the difference in opponent quality. For him to put in such, you said pillar to post, such a definitive performance against Barrio, because I figured, Barrio is normally a pretty high pace, pretty good cardio guy, but if Hernandez wins, he's probably going to have to kind of hang on and pull ahead late. But no, out wrestled him the entire time too. The clinch where Barrio is normally, that's kind of his wheelhouse. It's been his safe spot ever since losing those first 3 fights. He's kind of found the clinch as a place to grind out grindy wins. Hernandez made it uncomfortable for him there. He was just better everywhere. Sensational performance. I mean, not to tip my hand, but we get kind of jokey and fanciful with the Bulls, but his might have been the most impressive single performance of the night. Yeah.
This is the one. I think we both picked him to win. I thought he'd pull away late. I didn't think it'd be this great a performance. It's one of those ones though. We usually ask the question, like, was this more about Hernandez looking good, or is this a bad performance by Barrio? And I don't have to ask the question. I don't think this is a bad performance by Barrio. I just think Anthony Hernandez is making leaps and bounds improvements. He looks like a completely different. And I really wonder if he goes back to the Rodolfo Vieira fight, and it's a confidence thing. Like you talk to kids and softball and little league and all this stuff. You say when you start getting confident, you play so much better. He seems like a fighter who's fighting with tons of confidence.
Yeah. You can make the argument that, whatever Barrio had going on with his rib affected him, but Hernandez did that to him. It's the same as the cut on Song. It affected him, and his opponent did it. It's not like he slipped on a pipe, walking from the tech area. Another Randleman reference for you.
Yeah. So that was the main card. Let's move on to the prelims. The prelims ended on the most emotional moment of the entire right. Like we talked about whether Anthony Hernandez can get it in the Hall of Fame. David Jackson took on Pat Sabatini, and shout out to David Jackson for. Well, first of all, I know once again I speak for me, for Ben, for the entire Sherdog, and honestly, I probably everybody in the chat too. Oh my God, like incredible, like performance, incredible heart. Condolences to him, his entire family. It was one of those moments where they kept showing the family and they had like the double box thing going. And I'm sitting there and I'm glad they're doing it because it's like pulling on your heartstrings. But also part of me is like, should we be seeing the reaction? Like, something should be private? But
I agree, but at the same time, I think there's an implied consent if you're at the event, especially at an event that holds in a room that holds 700 people. Like you're not at T-Mobile Arena. What else are they going to focus on?
Like my church is bigger than the Apex.
Yeah. Like,
he's a massive underdog. We talked about he shouldn't have been that big of an underdog.
It tightened up by fight night, but he was still like minus 180 with Sabatini. Yeah, so almost 2-1
Since
favorite.
we taped the preview, more recent than when me and you taped the preview, his brother died. I don't know the situation. I don't need to know the situation, but his sibling died.
Yeah.
He had every right to pull out. And you know what? Shout out to Pat Sabatini for staying in the fight because, that guy's going through emotional stuff. You instantly become the bad guy. You didn't do anything wrong. You're doing your obligation of fighting a guy that you signed a contract to fight 3 months ago or whenever it was. But instantly, everybody's rooting against you. Everybody's rooting for this guy. But to go out there and do what he did and knock him out in, I don't know, a minute, whatever it was.
Minute 9. And, you and I – no, did you pick Jackson in this, or did we both pick Sabatini?
I picked Sabatini.
We both picked Sabatini, and I pitched it as like this is a close fight. It's almost a mirror match. The difference might be that Sabatini's like a little better striker, a little better wrestler. But I thought that there was a good chance that Jackson could win. But if he did win, I would never have picked that it was by throwing Michael Chandler to Tony Ferguson like. Snap kick straight up the middle to the face and, finishing it like that. Like if he won, I figured it was going to be winning Damon Jackson style, just hanging around and taking his back late and choking him out. But no, he ran him over. And you don't want to try to make too much of a storyline out of this because, if he had lost to Sabatini, it's not like that dishonors his brother or something or means he doesn't love him. But in terms of like the kind of win that had this narrative heft going into it, you go back to like Ian Freeman knocking out Frank Mir, where like it's tied into the personal tragedy and it's just this performance that he pulls out of a hat that he may never again. Like Damon Jackson, he may be UFC featherweight champion one day, but this is the only fight he wins that way. Probably not. I'm saying probably not.
Yeah.
But say he sticks around in the UFC for like 10 more fights and picks up 6 more submission of the night bonuses. He's never winning another fight that way.
No,
like that was a storybook moment.
Not front. It's the Gabriel Gonzaga high kick knockout on Crow Cop.
Yeah.
It's another Crow Cop Randleman with that, short left hook. It's not going to happen again. Good for him. Absolutely amazing. Really nice moment. I think the UFC did a really good job by not interfering when Steve Sayoud was hugging him. They gave him plenty of time. They didn't have DC with the mic in. Like just a really nice moment.
It helps.
As soon as it ended, you could see the weight on the guy. I mean, it's and his entire family. It was really nice. Hold on. It was a tragedy, but nice that he won.
It was nice that he won, and it was nice that the UFC gave them time. It's nice that they were able to because not only was it the top prelim, but because this was an all ESPN card, it's not like they had a hard cutoff.
Yeah.
So it was a nice moment.
Renzo Gracie Philly, kind of overshadowed, but this is their first loss in the UFC. And not the guy that many people thought would be the one to lose. Not that anybody was taking Joe Piper to lose either, but like
No.
of all their streak they've been going, Sabatini versus Jackson probably wasn't the one people were betting.
Like secretly in that corner, Andre Petrosky was like relieved. He's like, "Oh, thank God, it's not going to be."
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I wonder. I would have one of those guys who are like, "Oh, Pat, oh,
Well,
really?
dude,
Keep your head up."
That hair is not helping him because the first 10 times I saw him was like, "Is Mike Perry in these dudes' corner?" He looked exactly like Mike Perry.
But yeah, I wonder if the heads of Philly guys are like saying to Pat, like, "Oh, hey man, keep your head up." But as he turns away, they're like kind of fist bumping each other a little bit. Yeah,
they had a pool.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. All right. Moving on. Next, we had Trevin Giles taking on Louis Cosi.
Tell you what.
Let me. Okay.
No, I'll talk about this fight. You scroll up in the chat because I just posted a link to a picture of Rodriguez's cut. So you scroll up to that. I'll talk about this one.
I will do this. Hold on. I'll do this. Hold on. Ben, let me ask you a couple questions. Okay. I will try to get that thing going. I saw you put it up there.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get it. I don't know how to copy it from here, but let me see if I can do that. I don't know how to do it. I almost put Sherdog in timeout. Ben, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I want you to see if you know the answers. Let's see how smart Ben is. Ben, name the last queen of France. I'll give you 5 seconds to answer.
Marie Antoinette.
That is correct. Nice job, Ben.
Thank you.
Second, Lewis Inklock expedition was commissioned by which U.S. president?
Thomas Jefferson.
Nice job, Ben.
Thank you.
Let's see if you go 3 for 3. The first atomic bomb attack was dropped on which city?
Hiroshima, Japan.
There you go, Ben. Nice job. You were smarter than a 5th grader. You went 3 for 3. Okay, next fight is Loma Lukbukmi taking on Denise Gomez. No, the reason I asked that, they were the commentary team was talking about the smarter than a 5th grade question. So I said I'd rather do that than talk about that fight. So yeah, Trevin Giles won a decision of Luis Cosi. Loma Lukbukmi took on Denise Gomez. Really good fight. Loma she's doing a lot of things I like. One, I don't know if you caught this. She's starting to put on some size. She's short. She's super short, but she's getting thicker.
Yeah. Well, like she's, like I made the whole low center of gravity joke about Dumont that, like by the standards of our little gang, like kind of went viral. She's doing the same. Like she's always been kind of like thick-legged. I mean, she's got powerful legs, but they're on a different level now.
Yeah. She's oh God. She's spending some time at the Golden Corral. Like she might, like we might bump to each other a lot. me and Loma. I also like that I mentioned it against the Sam Hughes fight. I'm gonna say it again. Her wrestling and grappling is really coming along. Again, she's gonna have moments. Like we saw moments where there was this weird thing where there was a scramble and she didn't scramble. She almost got armbarred. But overall, she looks really good. Denise Gomez had a moment though in the first round when she got the mount, and I don't know why, but she went for an armbar when she had the mount. I don't get it. Like you just punch.
And I mean, oh man, this is gonna go back to like terrible fight trivia. But not only was it an armbar, but it was like the Elite XC, like John Murphy, Dave Huckabee armbar, where like she peels off for the armbar, and like she doesn't even have the arm.
That's real hard.
She's just like laying across this other woman, just like
yeah.
I mean, she reached back and grabbed it, but she ended up like fully extended, but not really having the arm. It was, I'm excited that Loma Lukbukmi got the win. It was a fun fight to watch, but it was a fun fight to watch because it was not good strategically. Both of these women, I mean, I agree with you and I agree with the people in the chat that say Loma is developing a fight style that is going to maximize her chance to win in the UFC strawweight division. Like, there's no atomweight division. There's probably never going to be one. So she's maximizing her chance to win where she can, and she's doing it kind of the same way Michelle Waterson has. You know, gone from a striker to a surprisingly grindy fighter who's willing to use takedowns, willing to use her ground game. But Gomez just fought such a terrible fight. Like, she pulled Loma straight into mount twice in the first round.
I know.
You know,
well, she was trying to get her up the air, and she was trying to like back trip her on the way down to kind of dump you down, and her balance was way off. Like, she had to go straight to the side. She was trying to strike her, like, do it to a, you know what I'm talking about, when you're on a double and you kind of catch the legs with the back trip. She was trying to do that. It just didn't work out. I'll say this: Loma's showed me some really mean ground and pound. Like, she busted her up a little bit with the elbows, and I think it was a little higher on Loma's performance than you were.
I think so, and I think we're probably arriving at close to the same point, just by different means. Like, I thought she looked good, and I'm just wondering how much it was owing to Gomez seeming almost to hand her the fight she needed on a platter. Ironically, considering that Loma is the one who's like the multi-time world Muay Thai champ, I thought if Gomez just used defensive wrestling and forced a mid-distance kickboxing battle, she might have won this fight.
I agree. Like, she had moments in that, especially in the third round. Like, she was opening up, and then, the moments getting close distance. She's getting headlocked and thrown. That's, next time we talk about whatever fights, that's in my notes for a long time until she shows me she ain't gonna get headlocked. Be prepared to until Mike Fridley gets back and fires me. You're gonna hear me saying about Denise Gomez's terrible headlock.
I hesitate to speak for our boss, but I have the feeling you're pretty secure. He's I can listen. Don't challenge me. Yeah. Don't say challenge accepted. But no, like, you and I both hate the headlock throw. Unless you're a world champion judoka, don't try it. But the real enemy is the people that it works on, because the 1 time in 10 that it works is the reason people keep trying it.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it. Shout out to the U.S. senior wrestling team right now, who is absolutely destroying the world championships going right now. Jordan Bartles just set the record for most world championships and Olympic titles at this age. Unbelievable. He's the GOAT of American freestyle wrestling, or probably American wrestling in general. Who else? David Taylor won. And there's a whole bunch of guys. But the girls kicking ass, so super, super awesome. Not awesome was Daniel. I apologize if I butcher his name. Zellhuber, his UFC debut as he took on Trey Ogden. A couple things to me stood out. I think there was a little bit of UFC jitters in there. Seemed like it. But also, Zellhuber really struggled with his timing, getting comfortable, getting into the rhythm. And I think a lot of it had to do with Ogden kind of having a poor man's version of what Sanhagen did, and kind of like he didn't do much. He kind of did what Jordan Levitt did to him, where he didn't do much. He just did that a lot, if that makes sense. Like, his strikes weren't effective. He just kept doing it.
Boss is mean. I'm not going to be quite this mean, because Hakeem Dawodu has had a lot more fights to stop doing this. But I agree with you that part of it is probably down to jitters. Part of it is just down to straight age and inexperience. I mean, he's 12-0. That's just not very experienced. He has very little experience. I mean, even Trey Ogden, who is as far as we can tell, a marginal UFC talent at 155, is a big upgrade for the people that Zellhuber fought for the first at least 9 or 10 fights of his career. My main problem, and it will remain to be seen if he can fix this, is he's one of the longest lightweights in the division and simply he was unable to dictate the distance. No. And if you are that tall and you have arms and legs that long and you can't dictate the distance, then honestly, your length becomes a liability, because the other fighter can force the fight to take place where you aren't able to generate power. And you aren't able to, and Ogden wasn't even determined to get takedowns, but a really grindy ground guy would have made this one of the most miserable. He might have made it the worst fight of the night, even over the one we didn't talk about at all, So, I mean, this was about as good as we could expect out of a debut L for Daniel Zellhuber, but I give him at least one more fight. I think he's the kind of guy who may make big strides, and it may just take him a while to merge into that traffic. So I'm looking to see him in maybe 4 or 5 months and see if we see a whole different guy, a little physically stronger, much more calm, and kind of ready to do his thing.
Yeah, and I just realized something. I skipped like I made a joke that Trevor Giles, he is the official fighter of the Shillan and Duffy show, as he's the police officer.
He doesn't have to be anymore.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's no longer a police officer. He doesn't have to be. But also, like, we set the record for least talked about guy because we skipped this recap. And if you remember, I didn't give him. I just said Trevor Giles wins on the preview show. So twice I've decided not to talk about this fight. Ogden, just good for him. Like, he's not going to win a lot of fights in the UFC, but good for him. Like, he can tell people that he won a fight in the UFC.
He won a fight in the UFC, and you know what? 5 years from now, he may be able to say, hey, I washed out of the UFC, but I beat the guy who's like, a top 5 guy now. We have no idea what Zellhuber's ceiling is. What's up, Big Marcel? If you don't follow Big Marcel Dorf on Twitter, you are missing out. He is, he's one of the best follows in the space. He is the king of European MMA kind of news, views, breaking stuff.
I don't pay attention to third world countries, man. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I consider Marcel a friend. We've done a lot of shows together. He's fantastic. He's my man.
Yeah, I can't sit here.
He's the nicest guy. Like I called Ben a dick. Like, Marcel's the opposite of that. He's anything but a dick.
Yeah. Marcel rules. Follow Marcel Dorf on Twitter. He is asking, was that Rodriguez cut? Looking at the pictures afterwards, I posted one in the chat. The worst cut in UFC history? I mean, there were maybe 2 of the 10 worst cuts in UFC history on the same card. It was pretty impressive. But the after picture where you can see like a pulsing blood vessel, like against his skull, like
I'm trying to find it now. I'm trying to find it. You posted in there, but I can't get it in the chat.
I mean, it's in the Slack general channel. It's the newest post.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, just go over there. But yeah, just watch out for it. Yeah, like I can't even make that humor, Marcel. I can't sit here in Texas, with our like failing power grid and our backwards ass laws, and even like jokingly call the Netherlands a third world country. Like I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna.
I did to my wife. I did to my wife. I married a Canadian. If you guys don't know, I am pro immigration as they come. I literally married an immigrant, but I always. Oh my god! Oh my god!
And you're talking.
Oh my god!
You're watching the reaction of a guy that literally invests murder cases for his like day job.
Yeah. I see some bad one. That's. I wasn't expecting. Yeah. I think that. I mean, what was the standard?
The standard was
Belfort and Marvin Eastman way back.
Well, was it? No, it wasn't Belfort Eastman. Yeah, no, it was Belfort Eastman. Yeah, the cut was Belfort Eastman.
It was his return. I think it was UFC 44, maybe?
Yeah, they used poor Houston's own Marvin Eastman. They used that guy as like a little stepladder, a little 5'9" stepladder to get back into the UFC. Like Rampage, his first fight back in the UFC from Pride.
In fairness, there was some backstory Rampage, as he actually had a win over Rampage.
Yeah. In both of their like second fight.
Yeah.
That's when like they tried to make like, Mike Tyson versus Henry Tillman because Tillman had like beat him in the Olympic trials or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the UFC like they want to put Joe Duffy against Conor McGregor. Like Conor McGregor's next return fight should be that guy that I don't know how to say his name. Some guy that nobody knows his name, like submitted Conor in like his like second fight or something like that. Like pull that guy out for Conor's next fight.
Not even Joe Duffy, like some other You
know what you're talking about? There's a guy.
Yeah, it was a Russian guy.
He's like he's like 7-12.
Yeah, Artem Sidikov.
Yeah,
Artem Sidikov. There you go. I'm smarter than the 5th grader and most MMA fans.
You crushed it because I probably wouldn't have got any of those questions right. Like your question would have been like, who was the last queen of France? And I'd been like, why the hell do I care about France?
Alan McDonald brings up Diego Sanchez's blood eyebrow against BJ Penn. I believe, Dev brought up Penn versus Stevenson. The thing was, like, Penn would just hit people and, like, open up an extra dimensional portal to, like, the plane of blood, and these people would just turn into a Dario Argento movie, like, and just start like spraying shit all over the place.
I don't even know what is that thing that's like inside his head.
I think that's a blood vessel.
Oh my Jesus!
Like you know, the one that like kind of pops out when Harrison Ford yells in one of his movies and gets real mad. Yeah, I think it's that.
Yeah, I got a couple of them going. Yeah.
Yeah, like thank goodness. Lord. Yeah, that thing didn't get nicked.
Christ. And that guy won. That's a crazy thing. You show that and say, and he won by TKO.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh,
yeah, yeah. But the thing about those Penn ones is you couldn't even see the cut because the guy was just instantly like drenched in blood, like a Slayer video.
Yeah, and BJ's like licking it off of him before you can really. Let's finish up these fights.
Yeah, let's do.
Probably one of my best calls. How it went down, and we both kind of was on this. Jillian Robertson versus Maria Agapova, saying like Agapova's going to beat the shit out of Jillian Robertson until Jillian Robertson submits her.
Yeah, Agapova's going to win the first round, but you know already that she's going to lose the fight when it happens.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was watching. Like when she got the takedown at the like midway point of the first round, I said Jillian Robertson's going to win this fight.
Oh yeah.
That said, Jillian Robertson won by second round submission. I feel worse about Jillian Robertson. Like,
explain.
Well, she's one-dimensional. And it's gotten to the point where, like, she has no counteraction on the feet. Like, it just doesn't happen. And now she's shooting and putting herself in bad positions to eat shots. Like, she almost got TKO'd when all she had to do was, like, move her head to the inside.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed it out, and she's not even the female Jordan Levitt anymore. She's the gold standard. Like, I think she is the worst striker for a fighter of her level in MMA.
Yeah.
And has not gotten better. You can argue that she's gotten worse, and I don't think leaving American Top Team is going to help that, but I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah. Maria Agapova, as Boz said, she is a complete bust. Dude, I don't say this easily about fighters. I feel like this has been like fighter bashing month for me, but she is triple dumb. Dude, she is extra dumb. I mean, we're talking about a woman that when she lost to Shayna Dobson in one of the biggest upsets in UFC history 2 years ago, she came out to the cage like dancing. She was doing like her little mean mug dance before the fight and ended up getting stretchered out 20 minutes later. There's nothing more embarrassing than an uninjured fighter getting stretchered out because they're tired. And that hasn't been fixed. Her gas tank still sucks. And here, like, it's almost like she's like, I know that the axiom is you tap or you nap, but I'm going to show that there's a third way, and I'm going to go.
Oh, yeah. What was that? She almost bit her tongue. I'm like, is she going to bite her tongue off? Like, what?
I don't get it. Like,
she's causing pain to herself.
Well, did she hope that the ref would like stop the fight if she like bit her own tongue off? Was she like a fox chewing off its own leg to escape a trap? Like, was that because maybe she's smarter than I think?
It's like the ending of Saw. Like, what was going on?
No, boss. Like, no. Like was she Jessica Rose Clark is prime Randy Couture compared to Maria Agapova.
Like, was she gonna like use her tongue as like a pry bar to keep her mouth open to get air in there? Like, what was going on? Like, you don't breathe with your mouth. You breathe like they were closing up the blood around you. Like, I don't know.
She looked like a spitting cobra. She didn't look like a spitting cobra. She looked like someone that got hanged in the Old West. That's when your tongue comes out. Is when like getting squeezed out of you because you're not defending the choke. You're just I don't get it at all. Yeah. And fair play. Robertson said that she was out, and ref didn't believe her. 15 seconds later, like, this was bad. I agree with you. I don't feel especially better about Robertson. She didn't show me anything that tells me that if she rematched any of the people that have beaten her up to this point, she'd win now. Like, she's still the same fighter she was. But it was fun.
Yeah, I apologize if I say his name wrong, but like Juicy X is saying maybe she was inflicting pain on herself to stay conscious. Like, I don't know if that's a possibility. Does that keep you caught? I don't know. Maybe he's on. He or she is onto something.
Yeah, it's a he.
He. Okay. All right. I've said way to go, brother, or something like that. I'm like, hey, it's a girl. So, the thing about Julia Roberts, she's a grappler who's not a great wrestler. Like, that's the thing. She's a topside grappler who, like, she's not if she had wrestling like Tatiana Suarez, then I'd feel great about her. But she's not.
Yeah.
So,
and with her athleticism, I mean, she's never going to be Jacare and just learn an American style like double leg, but she could be Damian Maia and learn just some tricky ways to get little trips or standing back takes. And that hasn't happened either.
Yeah, no. So they said that she's sprinkled the idea of moving down to 115. I actually think that's a good idea for her. Like, if you go to grapple, might as well grapple against smaller people. Maybe that helps. Yeah. I don't know. I
mean, like, you look at that Loma Lugbumi fight. Loma is the type of person that Jillian Robertson might be able to take down.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, she gets you. She gets you back. She can sub you, so she has that going for her.
She's the all-time leader in finishes and submissions in the women's divisions now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Before that, Tony Gravely took on Javid Basharat. Basharat just absolutely tremendous. The guy, we call this perfectly. This guy looks like a contender. I mean, Gravely tired out, like he does, trying to wrestle, trying to throw bombs, and when he did, Basharat just put it on him. And the best thing is, yes, Gravely has that style where he tires himself out because there is so much wrestling, so much explosive. But then you had Basharat who added to that, ripping the body over and over and over again. His fade back, like fading out of range when he was getting tired, sliding back into range, landing shots. Some great takedown. Like another reason why Gravely got hurt is because he had to work for every one of those takedown attempts. He got taken down himself. I mean, he looked great. He looks like a top 15 guy very soon.
Agreed. The temptation will be to push him along too quickly, I think. We're lucky in that regard that 135 is so deep so stacked. I mean, if he was a 185-pounder, he'd probably be fighting a borderline top 15 guy in his next fight.
Yep. You know why I think he'll get a little rush, though? Anytime you have that O next to your name, it just has a lot more clout. If he's 13-1, doesn't get pushed as much as what is he 13-0 now, I think.
Yeah.
13-0. I'm so excited. It seems like everybody's on him as me. So I want to give him a name, but I want to give him a step up in competition, but I want to give him a name. I'm giving him Pedro Munoz next.
I don't mind that at all. Like, Munoz clearly needs a huge step down, obviously. Like, he's been in free fall to the point that we're not even sure how much he has to offer competitively. He may still be a top 10 or 12 guy, or he may be completely shot and we just haven't admitted it yet because he's only losing to the top of the top guys. I'm fine with that. And yeah, like, I favored him to win this fight. You favored him to win this fight. I thought Gravely might catch him. Like, Gravely might be just a little too much too soon as a more experienced guy with a defined skill set that's still improving. Like you mentioned on the preview, like, Gravely has always been a very good wrestler, but he's started to develop better power in his striking. I mentioned that he's done it without abandoning his wrestling, so he's not just become like bad Josh Koscheck, but Basharat exposed him. You mentioned like his fadeaway. What a good thing to do against a wrestle boxer who's trying to throw his fastball, because it just makes him wear himself out swinging huge haymakers at air. He had a little trouble with the wrestling of Gravely in the first round, but in the second round, he spent some of that round throwing Gravely around. Like, he did like one underhook and hip throw that, I mean, it wasn't quite Tim Boach on David Heath. It wasn't like the full bitch toss, but like, he threw him with like complete separation to the ground. Like, yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. And it's funny because I like Gravely. Gravely's good. And I throw Munoz. I think Munoz is a bigger name right now. I don't know if he's a bigger test than Gravely. Like, he already, to me, cast a really good test.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. The open fight, Nicholas Motta took on Cameron Van Camp. Striker versus grappler, but the grappler didn't realize that he was a grappler and decided to strike with his chin high in the air and got smashed. I actually thought Van Camp looked better against Andre Feely than he did against down the weight class against Nicholas Motta. I got nothing else to add. Like, don't go against a power puncher with your chin high in the air. I picked him to win this one. I knew, like, I think it was the biggest upset. It was the biggest upset I called on the card, but I just didn't have, and I still don't have full confidence in Motta. But if you told me that Van Camp was going to
oblige Mota with the fight that gave him literally his best chance of winning easily, I would have changed my pick.
Yeah, me too.
Because that's one thing we know Mota can do is start you with one punch. And
Yep.
he, sure enough.
Hey, good for him. Good for him. All right. Do we have the awards, Ben?
We do.
All right. So what do we have?
All right. We are looking at a fight of the night and 2 performance of the night bonuses. I'm assuming that a good number of the readers that are, looking at Twitter or whatever know what the awards are. So I would say let's put in the chat channel what you would give the awards to rather than guess. There's one fight of the night, 2 performance of the night. Who you got?
All right, let me think. Those are good fights. I mean, the co-main event was incredible. I'm trying to think. The co-main event was really, really fun, but it was short. Feely versus Algio is probably where I'd go, but man, the main event was really good too. So, based on the cut and everything, I'm going to go Sanhagen and Song Yadong. That's what I would do for fight of the night. Even though I get no issue with Feely and Algio. 2 performances. Damon Jackson for sure. I give Damon Jackson. It's tough. I think about Rodriguez based on the cut, but he still got wobbled a bunch of times. Pfeifer was huge favorite, so I'm actually going to go with Mota. First round knockout, slight favorite. I go Mota, Jackson, and the main event. That's what I would do. You want to read out what other people do, and then you can tell us what actually happened?
Yeah, I'll throw them up here. You're doing it. Sorry. Boss has Chidi and Jokouani versus RoboCop for his fight of the night, performances of the night, Sanhagen and Jillian Robertson. Kyle Lougheed has Feely and Algio for fight of the night, RoboCop and Jackson for his performances. Like that. James Scott has, Chidi. A lot of people saying Chidi versus RoboCop for fight of the night. Jackson, Robertson.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. RoboCop and Damon Jackson says Dev for his performances. Technical Wealth has the main event for fight of the night, and then RoboCop and Jackson. What we really got is your fight of the night is Gregory Rodriguez versus Chidi and Jokouani.
Okay.
Your performances of the night are Damian Jackson and Joe Pfeifer. Be Joe Pfeifer and take home an extra $50,000.
They just love him. He was like a 500-1 favorite.
He was a 500-1 favorite. He showed why. I don't know if Be Joe Pfeifer should become a phrase. It shouldn't be like the Just Do It or the Be Like Mike of 2022 in the UFC, because what he meant when he said Be Joe Pfeifer is be the only interesting fight on a terrible episode of Contender Series. And he said that and then dropped the mic and walked off, and Laura Sanko was like, so I guess that means Joseph Pfeifer gets a contract and nobody else does?
Yeah.
Back to you guys.
Yeah. She is an absolute gem. I love her.
They need to get Sanko front and center of the UFC stuff as soon as possible.
Yeah,
she's got it all. Obviously, having a marketable look helps, but that's not enough by itself.
She has a marketable look.
Oh, good grief!
What do you say? Why you saying people find her attractive?
The people that got a certain type.
There might be. Yeah, if you have that perfect face, perfect body, blonde hair, perfect personality. But if you're that kind of woman, successful.
That wouldn't be enough by itself. That's enough to get you to be a ring card carrier. But on top of that, she is equally good as an interviewer or a desk analyst.
She's perfect.
And like you, she has professional MMA experience. She's actually fought.
She's perfect.
And got out while she's still marketable. So.
Yeah. All right, let's get to some of the negative stuff. Let's do the cut list. If you're not familiar with the cut list, the way we do this, if both me and Ben agree that it's time for the UFC to let someone go to make room for other people, then we allow them to get rid of them on our cut list. Have to be both me and Ben in agreement. So Ben, how many do you have for your cut list? And if you're in the chat, you can throw out who you think it's time to get rid of.
Okay. I have 1, 2. I have 3. But I'm kind of cheating.
Okay. I have 4. So
Okay, well, let me go. Let me go first.
Okay.
And if and I am open to being convinced of yours.
Okay.
But for me, Maria Agapova has to go.
Yeah.
Just like you lose badly to Jillian Robertson, it's time to go.
Lost 3 out of 4. She's on my
Yeah.
list.
Alan Amadovski.
Mira Agapova on the cut list.
Alan Amadovski is 0-4 in the UFC, and I believe they're all first round finishes.
Yeah,
that's
he obviously is on the list. I mean, we could probably name it. We could name it Alan Amadovski. He's taken over. I mean, he got beat by John Phillips. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, and Aspen Ladd has to move up to 145 or she's gone.
Oh wow, yeah, I wasn't even thinking. Yeah,
she has missed weight 4 times now. When she makes weight, she looks like shit, and she's not Kelvin Gastelum. Like she doesn't have this obvious upside where it's just like, oh, if she'll just get that dialed in, that's gone. Because like in her best moments, she's just not the killer that she was at the LFA level. It's on her to prove she belongs in the UFC, and 145 is where she gets to prove it.
Yeah, I agree. So I wasn't thinking of her.
Dude, just one quick moment. Think of Sarah McMahon, how old she is, how little time she has left to pick up paychecks. And that's twice now that she has had a fight tanked by like 27-year-old Aspen Ladd. Like, it's fucked up, dude. Like, be a professional.
And you know what? I blame her manager and her team for accepting the fight now. Like, if they try to rebook on this, like, no. I'll fight anybody else. I'm not fighting Aspen Ladd.
Yeah, it's like either move up to 145, leave the UFC, or fight Chris Barnett.
All right. I had 2 more, but you saved them. I had Cameron Van Camp. I went 2 in the UFC, 2 KO losses. I was getting rid of Cameron Van Camp, but Ben saved them. And the other one, Louis Cosi, 0-2 in the UFC. Did a 180 in his performances where he came out like a bat out of hell in his first fight, gassed out. So this one he's like, I threw a lot of punches and got tired. So what if I don't throw punches? Maybe I won't get tired. He didn't get tired, so that part worked.
And I mean, we didn't discuss the fight, but like my joke was apparently Trevin Giles listened to my preview because I said he's winning every one of his fights until he makes one colossal mistake. And he's like, well, maybe if I don't do anything, I won't make any huge mistakes. And sure enough, he won the fight. I texted his coach afterwards and said, well, Trevin's wrestling looks good.
Yeah, it was like being a police officer or a former police officer. It was like he was working on his de-escalation tips. Like, hey, calm down, sir.
Like,
sir,
well, now I have to master the citizen's arrest since I'm not like caring animore.
You're just sitting there, the guys getting mad and just like, hey, why, you have to lower your voice. You have to yell at me. Yeah, nice job. No viral videos there. Yeah. All right, let's do the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and Bears are a stock market reference. We do it hockey style 3-2-1. The Bulls list you want to be on, that's the stocks rising up. Bears list is bad. You do not want to be on that. Let's go negative again. I'll go first in the Bears if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
My number 3, despite going 1-1 for this team, it was a bad night, and that's Daniel Gracie, Henzo Gracie Philly team. They now have 1 loss. So when you're way on the top, you take 1 loss. Your stock obviously has to go down. No, I'm still the biggest fans of this team.
Best run for a single team since Dwayne Ludwig took over Team Alpha Male and they won something like their first 11 or 12 fights.
Yeah.
And wrapped up a UFC title and a title shot in a single year. Yeah.
I mean, only the Scrap Pack has gone undefeated in the UFC forever.
Yeah, they just ran out of time.
Them and Chael Sonnen. My number 2, Tanner Boza. This is the guy that we were starting to get a little bit excited on. Showed, a little bit of promise. Not a guy that anybody thought was going to be a contender, but it was one of those like, hey, he's starting to beat people. You need to recognize that he's now lost 3 out of 4. And my number 1, a guy that had a lot of hype coming in the UFC debut, was a over 4-1 favorite, and that's Daniel Zellhuber. Terrible debut, big favorite loss. Not a good night for him. That's my Bears. Do you want to read some of read some of the bears from the listeners first before giving your list?
Sure. Bears, we have a few. Boss just says former prospects, people like Boza, Agapova, Cosi, Zellhuber. The only prospect who won was Pfeifer, and, he's got the corporate rub. Obviously, Dana, you might as well print the T-shirts now. Be Joe Pfeifer. Dev says Team Daniel Gracie, just like you. Before I do, I also want to address one thing that the homie James Scott said. Boza to light heavyweight. I mean, Boza weighed in for tonight's fight at 227 pounds. I guarantee you, I can name you 4 UFC light heavyweights right now that weigh more than that in the cage on fight night. Johnny Walker, Ryan Spann, Yuri Prohaska, Oven St. Preux. And there are probably more than that. But those 4, I guarantee you, weigh more than 227 on fight night. He would, if he made the cut, I mean, from 227.
Can I name it middleweight?
Yeah.
Alex Bahia might be over that.
Like Boza from 227, he could probably make 205 with like a bran muffin and a water cut.
Yeah. Who weighs more right now? Tanner Boza or Aspen Ladd?
I said in our YouTube comments, like, I don't know if Golden Corral is going to sponsor us, but they need to stop sponsoring Aspen Ladd.
That's a good line.
So, I mean, he could go to light heavyweight, but it's a more talented division, and the speed advantage that already seems to be evaporating out from under him at heavyweight would be nullified at light heavyweight.
Yeah, maybe he gets some power too going down. Maybe
he gains some power because he's a low power guy as it is, but you put him up against a borderline top 15 guy like a Nikita Krylov, even Ion Kudalaba. Like Kudalaba probably weighs like at least 225 on fight night. I think like weird, like low fight IQ Kudalaba probably beats Boza. Like he's best off at heavyweight. Just he needs to get back to what was working well for him.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. Why not?
Yep.
You want to give me your Bears list?
Sure. I mean, I agreed with all yours, so I don't need to add a whole lot to it. But Chidi and Jokouani, like you and I have followed his career for a long time. Probably most of the people in the chat, saw him on Bellator, have seen him fight different places. So it's not like he's this anointed, golden child prospect, but he was turning into a fun mid-career resurgence story. He was turning it like he had the potential to be a Chris Curtis type story. So whenever a guy like that takes his first loss on, during that latest act, it's got to be a stock down moment for him, and that definitely was. And I do have to throw in like Pat Sabatini, like he was favored in his fight, and not only did he lose, but he didn't really get a chance to get untracked. And like this is an unscripted sport. I don't think he was like part of some other guy's like Date with Destiny, Just he went out, came out unprepared for what Damon Jackson was going to throw and lost the fight real quick.
Yeah. All right, let's move over to the Bulls. This is the guys whose stock went up or stories or something like that. Ben, I'll let you go first this time.
Okay. Stock up. Anthony Hernandez. Hernandez is turning from a fun middleweight to a very, very good middleweight. Again, we'd say this every preview, every recap. Middleweight is wide open. There's a reason that Israel Adesanya is currently fighting like a 5-0 fighter in his next fight. And the shared kickboxing background would not be enough. If he were at 170, like they never would have went and signed Alex Pereira. Like this is like the UFC re-signing Jeremy Horn so that like, Chuck Liddell would have someone to fight. Hernandez he's not far from the top 15, the top 10. He's not far from the title picture. And that feels funny for me to say about a guy who just seemed kind of like a fun Contender Series novelty, even leading up to the Vieira fight.
Yeah, he looked great today.
Yeah. Number 2, Javid Basharat. On a night that a lot of big time prospects kind of laid an egg or continued to lay eggs, he did exactly what he was expected to do and then some. Like he took a good victory over another good prospect who's a little further along than him and flashed individual facets of his game that are very promising at the next level. Like he said on the mic afterwards, he's like, I showed you how I deal with a Division I wrestler. So now we don't have to have the Conor and Sean O'Malley conversation about him a year from now. He's like, I fought a good MMA wrestler and not only beat him, I out wrestled him for like long stretches of the fight.
And just to add to that, it was a good week for the brothers. I had the brothers because his brother won a contract earlier this week too. So just the whole Basharat family stock rise up. Good, continue.
Farid Basharat looked great on the Contender Series. And he looks exactly like Javid, so expect Daniel Cormier to get confused a lot. Number one, there could be a lot of people, but there could also be only one. Who could it be but Damon Jackson tonight?
Absolutely.
Like we said earlier when we were breaking down the actual fight, yeah, I mean, everybody has plans and goals to be a champ, but it's only realistic for a very, very small percentage of fighters. If this... there's every chance that this ends up being kind of like the signature win of Damon Jackson's career. It was just a literal storybook moment, the one that if you saw it in a sports movie, you'd be like, oh, that's almost unrealistic. Like, sure, like this kind of like tough grappler, like all of a sudden knocks this dude out with a front kick in the first round. Of course he does.
Yeah.
What a beautiful moment. Like, I'm glad to have picked this fight wrong. I'm not ashamed to admit I may have gotten something in my eye immediately after the fight ended that lasted for several minutes. Congratulations, Damon Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. He was number one on my list too, so I'll give 3 new ones. Bass had his new crush Loma, RoboCop, and the Just Bleed guy rise again. Al McDonald had Anthony Hernandez, RoboCop, and Basharat. Scott McCreate had Hernandez, Rodriguez, and Jackson. James Scott had Hernandez, Basharat, Ogden. My number 3, I'll go with Gregor Rodriguez. He's 4-1 in the UFC. I mean, his face, not so much. His good looks, not so much. But he's 4-1 in the UFC right now. He's crazy exciting. I'm calling for fights with like Marvin Vettori, so his stock is way up. My number 2, Joe Piper. The beat Joe Piper thing is catching on, even though I think it's kind of getting annoying already. But he's exciting. He's fun. So his stock rise. And my number 1, I'm gonna go with the Ringside Doctor. I think he did a fantastic job. The cuts were really bad. The cut man did his, as good as they possibly can. Right, Doctor's tough in a tough situation. I think it's not often a doctor stops a fight and everybody agrees with it. So
he's a plastic surgeon trying to drum up like, business for like his regular job, I bet.
That's what it is. That was your Bulls list. Let's get to the dude seriously. Do you have a dude seriously moment?
I have several dude seriously moments, but okay. Yeah, I will trim it down to 1.
Okay.
Dude, seriously, Maria Agapova. You've been training for a long time. You've been with one of the best teams in the sport for a long time. At which class did they teach you the do nothing but spit out your mouth guard method of rear naked choke defense? Like,
yeah, dude, seriously.
It's just, dude, seriously. I mean, there's several fighters I could have gone in on for this, but Maria Agapova, she just never misses a chance to like scrape the bottom of the barrel further, like into just dumb fight choices. So.
Yeah. I'll give you my dude seriously. Dana Cormier, you really gonna make jokes about people eating donuts? Like, dude, seriously?
What do you think he weighs right now?
250.
Oh, at least. Like, dude, he weighed 250 when he was fighting at heavyweight.
Yeah, 280. I don't know. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah.
He just looks short that you don't think about thinking that heavy. Yeah, you're right. He's like 280. Real quick, I've always wondered this, and maybe someone in the chat or you know this. Triple G. I know his name is Gennady Golovkin. I apologize if I said his. I'm not
perfect.
A boxing guy. Where's the third G? Like,
his middle name is Gennady. Is it Gennadyevich Golovkin?
There you go. Nice to know.
Yeah.
I was like, where's? Am I missing the like? Yeah. All right. Now I know. What'd you grade for the card?
Give it a solid C.
Really, Ben? You keep going lower than me.
I mean, there were.
Like, I'm going way higher. Like way higher.
It's interesting. Just the main event ended weirdly. The fights that were really exciting in a lot of cases were exciting because fighters made dumb decisions. I mean, I'd probably give it a lower grade if the Ladd McMahon fight had graced us, because it's not like we probably lost a great fight. But yeah, I give it a solid C.
Wow, I went B plus.
Oh wow,
I was like way over you. I said when we had these memorable cuts, the Damon Jackson moment, the Andre Fili, like these two heartfelt moments where the guy who had to go through this hardship wins, the crazy cuts, the fun main event, the punching behind your head of the Andre Fili Bill Algio fight, Pfeifer walk off, Nicholas Moda, the biting your tongue off, and then even have like an all-time snoozer, like makes it memorable. That's why I went B plus. So, but the toughest question we have every single week. So actually, I didn't say it. Read some. Bass goes with a B. Technical Wealth goes with a B. So they're a little closer to my scorecard. That was a good comment. Who is your listener of the evening? That's a good one tonight.
It is a good. Like I thought, James Scott. He doesn't always grace us. But when he does, he is a low volume, like high power guy. Like he needs his moment. He needs to be able to snipe. He sniped tonight. So despite the fact that we were busy with our hardcore central crew, Boss, Dev, Technical Wealth, RC killing us on YouTube comments, by the way. I'm gonna give it to James Scott, like the dark horse. James Scott tonight was the one night that like John Dodson has that makes you frustrated at the other nights. Like throw more volume, Scott. Come on.
All right. I'll do this. I'll ask a fifth grader question, and whoever gets this one first will be my listener of the night. Let me think of something good. Who shot Abraham Lincoln? Whoever gets it first will be my listener of the night. Ben, I know you know this answer, but I'm assuming you know this answer.
I know the answer.
Okay, it's a pretty easy one. I had to think of one off the fly. So first one to get this one in the chat will be my listener of the night. Let's see. Because that person is smarter than Bruce Bobtrotter is our
Bruce Bobtrotter.
There you go, Bruce Bobtrotter. He goes with the Booth. Do I give it to him?
Keith gives credit for incomplete answers. Apparently, yeah.
Because in fairness,
but if you give the complete answer, then you get it wrong. Like Technical Wealth and Boss both did.
Yeah, Technical and Boss both got the complete.
James
answer.
is like, I don't want to be Dodson. I want to be Rumble Johnson.
I want because I'm thinking like Bob Trotter was typing it, but he just by going Booth, he got his answer out first while the rest of the guys were I'll give it to Bruce Bob Trotter. Smart man to go with the
nobody's gotten it right yet.
Just so you guys know, his full names is John Willix Booth, not James Willix Booth.
Yeah.
So there you go. I have it. And no one did the Jeopardy. What is? So there you guys have it. That's the full recap for UFC Vegas 60. We have a week off, Ben. What are you going to do next week on your week off?
Probably write another Hall of Fucking Awesome article, induct the newest inductee, and then just kind of get ready to get back into the grind. This is the week that, as you kind of mentioned off the top, editor-in-chief Mike Fridley is taking off, so I'll be plenty busy doing extra stuff.
Yeah, and I'll be going to the Golden Corral and going to some horse racing. That's what I'll be doing. There you guys have it, guys. See you guys in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we've got Dern versus Jan.
There you go. 2 weeks, Dern versus Jan.